I am a psychologist at the Summit Center in Walnut Creek. And I want to start off with like a little warm-up. So turn to the person next to you and tell them 3 strengths of yours. And it doesn't have to be like math. It can be like for me, I'm really good at being on time and using punctuation correctly. Like it can be like any kind of strength that you have. It could be tying your shoes in fancy ways. Like whatever, 3 strengths that you have. Tell the person next to you. Even better if it's not the person you came with. Go ahead. Tell them 2 things that are challenges for you. For me, that would be navigation in the car and interrupting people. Those are 2 things that are hard for me. So yeah, quickly, 2 challenges for you. Just to point out that everybody has things that they're really good at, and everybody has challenges, right? Everybody. Everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. Our brains are all different, which is incredible because otherwise it would be super boring in the world if we all had the same brain. But this idea that all brains are different, this is one way to think about neurodiversity. Another way to think about neurodiversity is that for some people, their challenges can make learning and processing and work and relationships more difficult. And some people say this is because they have a deficit or a disorder. Other people say it's because the world is not set up for different kinds of brains. And, when talking about different kinds of minds, different kinds of brains in this way, we're also talking about neurodiversity. Also neurodivergence, same thing, neurodiversity, neurodivergence. And neurodiversity is not like a code word for ADHD or autism. Like some people sort of assume that you're really saying that. It's not a code word. Although people who have ADHD or autism are definitely neurodivergent, neurodivergence can encompass like a very broad swath of people who think differently, learn differently, present differently, behave differently, interact with people differently, just see the world differently. And it can be really challenging to live in a world that's not built for you. So we're going to do another little exercise. Do I have helpers on this one? Who are my helpers?
Yep.
Okay, so you've got a piece of paper and a pencil, is that right? Okay, so when I say begin, and not before I say begin, I want you to start writing a paragraph about what you're going to do this weekend. But I want you to use your non-dominant hand, and I want you to keep writing no matter what else happens. Okay, are we ready?
Am I helping them?
Are you?
You're writing.
Are you helping them?
No, I've got the 2 helpers.
That's you need the help.
Yeah. Okay, so you can go. Okay, so that was a really clumsy way to show you how challenging it can be to do tasks in a world that is not accommodating to your abilities, okay? People who are neurodivergent very frequently encounter situations like this where, the world makes it very hard for them to do what they need to do. But our brains are flexible, and your challenges don't necessarily limit what you're capable of doing when you have supports, when you have accommodations, when you learn new things. Okay, so if you are or your kids are neurodivergent, you're sitting here like, okay, this is not new information. But I want to say this to you. Sometimes it feels like, you're the one. things. That your kid is the neurodivergent one, or you're the family with the neurodivergent way of being. And I think a lot of times you're seeing everybody else's best effort for the outside world. But I think it's important to realize that, we're all around you. There are so many successful, famous people who are neurodivergent. Billie Eilish is neurodivergent. She has Tourette's. Who else? Simone Biles, Robin Williams, Walt Disney, Temple Grandin, Bill Gates, Michael Phelps. The list goes on and on and on of all these people who are incredibly successful and neurodivergent. And people you work with, people you know, people in your family. Neurodivergent people are everywhere. Being neurodivergent doesn't mean you're less than. And actually being neurodivergent can mean that you are able to think up new ways of doing things and open space for creative solutions and creative ways of solving problems. Yes, paper. Okay. So my best advice, Lindsay and I were talking about this, and she was like, what advice do you have? And I was like, oh my gosh, advice for neurodivergent families is like a weekend workshop. But I was thinking about what my number one piece of advice is for neurodivergent families, and it is to create the best team possible. And by team, I don't just mean your doctors. I mean your babysitters, your tutors, your the server in your favorite restaurant, the people who really see your kid, the people who really understand your kid's strengths as well as their challenges, and the people who support them, their tutors, their coaches, everybody who comes in contact with your kid. If you can find people who see their strengths, who see who they really are, and don't just see their challenges, that would be my number one piece of advice. And if you and your kids are more typical, if you feel like the neurodivergent label doesn't really apply to you or your family, not to say that you don't have your own strengths or challenges, because you absolutely do. I want to say that, if you're interacting with somebody who seems to be atypical in their presentation, in their behavior, in their social skills, whatever, try and look through it through a neurodiversity lens. So instead of focusing on the person's challenges or how they're different from you, think about, what are this person's strengths? What is this person good at? How did this person and I see the world in a similar way? And talk to your kids about strengths and weaknesses. Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses. You can talk to them about how they have strengths and weaknesses. You, grandma, their teachers, their friends, the dog, everybody's got strengths and weaknesses. And emphasizing that the things that are easy for them are challenges for somebody else, and things that are challenges what did I already say? Things that are challenges for other people are easy for them, and vice versa, can be really important in them being able to see the world and see other people in a more generous way. My own kids, they're big kids, they're 17, they're really sick of me talking about strengths and weaknesses because I did it all the time when they were little. And one of them is super neurodivergent and the other one isn't. And we talked about strengths and weaknesses ad nauseum. And now that they're high schoolers, they are super unfazed by the kids in their schools, the kids that they know who have autism, who have ADHD, who have learning disabilities, because they're so used to okay, neurodiversity, strengths and weaknesses. This kid is challenged with this, but they're really good at this. And, they know that these kids have incredible strengths that my kids might not have. So just to sum up, talk to them about strengths and weaknesses. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. We all have different brains. And aren't we glad that we do? All right. Thank you.